Hey guys, and welcome back to F1 Fanatics. It's Ash here with our German Grand Prix qualifying reaction video. As you can see, it's just me for this one, but I'm going to be going through what happened within qualifying itself and just picking up on some of those big flashpoints that we had from within. So let's jump straight into it. So in Q1, the big story from the start of qualifying was Sebastian Vettel not even setting a time. So he went out for his outlap and was complaining of lack of power, went back into the garage, and Ferrari looked at the engine and have come out and said that it was an airflow issue with the turbo, so he wasn't getting enough air in and was causing severe lack of power, which unfortunately for him, after having quite a good free practice for both of the Ferraris, wasn't able to set the lap, meaning he will be starting 20th on the grid, and that is obviously provisionally. We don't know of what penalties are going to be taken just yet, but it's not looking too good for him in terms of where he will be starting. Q1 as well, we also had Lando Norris not really performing to the best of the McLaren itself. So he did seem to be running quite low and having a low ride height. There was definitely a lot more sparks coming from his car than Carlos Sainz in the sister McLaren. So he has come out and said that it wasn't that actually affected his lap times. He believes it was just that he didn't string together a complete lap. He was having quite good sectors depending on where he was, but overall not a complete lap for him, which, considering how he's been performing, it is a little bit unfortunate, and it's the first time actually that he hasn't made it out of Q1. So for a rookie season, he has done very well for himself. Conversely, we had Alexander Albon. Didn't make it out of Q1, but Lando Norris was blocking him on his final fast lap. Both have come out and said that they aren't expecting there to be a penalty for blocking. It was mainly because Lando was actually on a fast lap at the time, but it does make interesting watching when you look at it and you see that he's there and Albon is effectively pushing Norris along. That's how much faster that Toro Rosso was than the McLaren today. But unfortunately for him, not quick enough to be able to get it through. So that's how it was for him. We also had the two Williams. Obviously, we weren't expecting big things from them. I was expecting higher than 19th and 20th, which through some luck they have managed. So my prediction there was correct. But for them, their upgrades haven't worked as well as they were expecting. So it does mean that those gains haven't been made as they wanted. So it is another one of those back to the drawing board and see where they can go with that. We've had one incident within Q1, and that was with Daniel Kvyat and Romain Grosjean within the pit lane. It was being investigated after qualifying as to whether there was an unsafe release. Haven't seen whether that's come out yet as to whether there will be a grid penalty for Kvyat. My view of it was along the same sort of lines as Martin Brundle, though. It was close, but it wasn't unsafe. There was that gap there, and Grosjean's just taken that action and has made more of it than was necessary within that situation. So I don't think there will be a penalty with that one, but I'm not always right, understand that, so there is the potential there for a penalty. We'll have to see from tomorrow. So provisionally, going from the back of the grid, we've got Vettel in 20th, Kubica in 19th, George Russell being in 18th, Albon 17th, and Norris 16th. One thing from there that we can take is George Russell has already won the inter-team battle for qualifying this season, as he has out-qualified Robert Kubica in all of the races so far this season, and as this is the halfway stage, that battle has been won. And then we were on to Q2, and at the start Mercedes must have been wanting to know what was going on with the teams around them. We had Max Verstappen on the radio complaining of lack of power. The issue was rectified and he was able to get out and complete a lap, getting through to Q3. But it is one of those where reliability in the top cars isn't seeming what it has been recently. There does seem to be a bit of fragility within those. So Max was complaining of lack of power, and that was once again coming from the turbo lag within the Red Bull. So there is something there that does need to be looked at, because it does seem to be a consistent issue that is coming up for them. So there needs to be upgrades with regards to their turbo, and it's something that's going to be looked at. And do expect that definitely after the summer break to see something in relation to that, because Max isn't going to keep standing for it. He's had a number of times now where he's been close with the battle at the front, and his turbo has been an issue for him. Definitely he feels there's been a few races where he could have been further up the grid and has had reason, because of the turbo lag, not had that opportunity to push for it. So definitely needs to be having a look with that and see where they can improve. One of the headlines for it is Lance Stroll made it into Q2 today. He's first appearance for him in 14 races. So for him, definitely gain there from the Vettel incident, and it has meant that he's had that boost. Can he take advantage of it? It is only starting that little bit further forward. But with the performance upgrades that the Racing Point have brought in, it would be really good to see if he could kick on with that and see a boost in his race performance from there. So it'll be something to look out for tomorrow. Once again, though, we have got a team where the inter-team battle for qualifying has already been won. Sergio Perez beating in there, making sure that he's sewn that up, which isn't really a surprise. Perez has always been a strong qualifier, and that team has been built around him in the past. So it's not a surprise qualifying wise to see that. But it is really good to actually see Stroll taking that step up now and being able to get into Q2. And hopefully, for him anyway, it would be good to see if he could use the upgrades in his favour and be able to replicate the qualifying that Sergio Perez has had and be able to take that step up more consistently. With regards to other laps within there, Kevin Magnussen, very unlucky not to get into Q3 today, had a massive lock-up going into the hairpin, and when you look at the gaps across qualifying times, he would have made, had he not locked up, Q3 was a place for him. He would have been in that top 10. So it would have been really good if he'd been able to make it in, especially considering the issues that Haas have been having, and then trying to identify the issues and see where they can improve. Going out with it in Q2 was Stroll in 15th, Kvyat in 14th. Ricciardo had a disappointing day today, but 13th for him on the grid, and he'll definitely be looking to move forward. Magnussen came 12th, and Giovinazzi starting 11th, so being that front runner with that free choice, which I'm not going to be too surprised if the majority of people are looking at the medium tyres to start off with tomorrow, especially considering the forecast for rain. So if it's not raining at the start, then mediums probably will be the race tyre of choice for the majority of drivers. So it'll be using those to go as far into the race as possible, and hopefully being able to see if the undercut works. So we went into a top 10 battle in Q3 today with 8 different teams being represented. The main thing that shows is, one, obviously it was disappointing to lose the Ferrari of Vettel early on in qualifying today, but it is still that battle in the midfield and Formula 1.5, as it's being dubbed by the majority of people, still hasn't got a clear team that is dominating that, and track dependent and weather dependent, and there's so many variables at the moment within that you don't know what's going to happen in that midfield, and that's something that it's interesting and is great to see, because it does mean that the battles are throughout the grid now, and it's not just having that team running away from it and having those boring races where there's not much overtaking. It is throughout the grid at the moment, which is fantastic to see. So Q3 started off with Leclerc not even making it out, and another issue for Ferrari within qualifying. So at first it did seem as if it was the same issue with Vettel's car, but they have come out and said that it was an issue within the fuel system. So it's not a inherent issue. It's one that is different, but it is something that needs to be questioned. Ferrari now have had a number of races this season where in free practice they have been the faster car. So you've had that in Bahrain and Azerbaijan, and definitely this weekend in Germany, and they haven't been able to carry that into qualifying and the race itself. And it has always been reasons that are Ferrari or driver mistakes. So in Bahrain, you had Sebastian Vettel spinning within the race. You had the engine issue for Leclerc, which was unfortunate, but it has come up. In Azerbaijan, you had the Ferraris going out on the medium tyres in Q2 when the temperature wasn't there for that, and it was one of those where Ferrari as a team had made a mistake. And now you've had two different issues coming up within the car in qualifying, and I'm one of those where Ferrari now need to sit down and they need to try and identify where the issues are. Toto Wolff has come out and said that they need to look at the illness within the team, which Toto Wolff isn't one of those guys that comes out and discusses issues at other teams lightly. So even other teams on the grid are noticing that there are inherent issues at Ferrari at this moment in time. And it's one of those that it needs to be looked at, because Mercedes as a team aren't making these mistakes, and they're so far ahead when it comes to points in the Constructors' Championship at the moment, and both drivers are increasing their leads quite quickly within the drivers as well. Red Bull, mistakes within the team itself aren't present, and they have made gains this season on Ferrari. So it is something that definitely needs to be addressed, and soon. Otherwise, Ferrari are going to have to get to the stage where they write this season off, and it isn't something that Ferrari as a team are going to want to do, especially as there's not going to be that major rule change for next season. So they need to get on top of these mistakes and issues as soon as possible, so that they can actually start to develop going forward and be able to try and close that gap at the front, because it's what all of the fans want. We want to see as many teams battling as possible, and we're not getting that consistently at the moment, and it is because of mistakes. The car that is closest to challenging that Mercedes on the whole is the Ferrari. Red Bull have come into that battle a little bit more, but it still feels as if it's track dependent. Ferrari do need to address it so that they can make sure that that battle stays there consistently, and they're not going to want to drop behind Red Bull, which is something that could end up happening if it carries on like that. And one of the things I was reading online is that people are actually now looking at this and thinking that these issues have come up on the basis that the Ferrari are having to stretch their engines so much to actually be able to compete, which when you look at the grid, you wouldn't expect that, because especially this weekend, the Ferrari power, all the Ferrari power cars have performed well, and it's shown that that engine has the power. But if they are having to stretch them, then penalties are going to start racking up, and they're going to be in a position where they are chasing even more than they need to be. So it is something that needs to be addressed, and I would say quite quickly now. On the whole, the battle for pole would have been so much more interesting had Leclerc been able to get out on a lap. Yes, Hamilton put in a blinder of a lap, and I think it was one that was being expected, that Hamilton would have been up there for that battle for pole, but for him to have been able to get it relatively easily is down to the fact that Ferrari weren't able to perform, and Max having those issues in Q2 as well, because it does mean that he's having to think about what if something happens. So Max put together a fantastic lap to split the two Mercedes, which is great to see. It does mean that we've got that battle from the start tomorrow, which I think is going to be a brilliant one to watch, especially and guys, just to have a few stats from qualifying for you so that you've got them. This is the first time that Vettel hasn't made it out of Q1 since Malaysia 2017, so that shows his consistency within qualifying, and also he's only made it to the podium once when he started 15th or lower. So podium may be a little bit of a stretch for him, but with that Ferrari power, then there's definitely the opportunities there for him to gain some time and places within that. It's just going to be one of those where hard race for him, but considering the fact that there is rain predicted for the race itself, there is that opportunity for having mixed conditions and shaking it up a bit for him, so gains will be made there. Also, it's been 7 years since a Ferrari has started 10th or lower and ended up winning a race. So Charles Leclerc's got a little bit of history there that he needs to work against for him if he's going to get his maiden for a win in Formula 1, but also to be able to get that Ferrari onto the top step. It's going to be a bit of an ask for him, but as I said, with the rain, it is always possible. Mistakes happen, and we never know, so it'll be something to look out for. And also, one just to have a little bit of a note on, Max Verstappen is now starting to get close to the record for the number of front row starts without having a pole position. So he is currently on 7 front row starts and the record is 10, so it's something he's going to be wanting to rectify as soon as possible, and he is going to want that pole position. So considering how he's driving at the moment and that Red Bull improving, the Mercedes is going to have to look out for that in the future, because he is going to aim for that pole position as soon as possible. So guys, that is a quick review of qualifying itself and my reaction to some of the events. I hope you've enjoyed the video. Make sure that you do comment below what you think your thoughts were for qualifying, and also predictions for the race tomorrow. Make sure you press that subscribe button, and look forward to seeing you tomorrow for our race reaction. That's going to be me once again. So guys, enjoy the rest of the race weekend and have a great time.